I finally, got up the nerve to ask my mom about that. And ask her about that day, like, what happened? What do you remember? Why, like, what do you remember from that day? And all she says, Cory, like, I don't even remember that happening.
Which is wild, her not remembering that she took her son down from trying to hang himself. Did she walk in and you were hanging there?
Oh, I was hanging. Yeah, I was outside. Like, I can clearly remember which tree it was, where it was at in the house, like where my friend was, and then my mom coming up and her just like taking me down and then just walking away, and nothing was ever discussed about it again. So when I look back at my life again, where does God make a way? Where does God save us? So there's no doubt that that was God's intervention right there in my life. As I was trying to end it, it wasn't time yet.
All right, guys. Well, welcome back to Jesus Stories, down hosted by Burnet Methodist Church. I'm Jason Birdwell, and we are trying to delve in an interview style just to see, like, what did Jesus Christ do to redeem and save somebody's life, any area of their life. Call them Jesus Stories. And with us, I have got Cory Clayton right here. I did a little flash to your camera, then I messed up on the camera switching, but no, Cory's with us here. And man, dude, glad to have you down here. You're from Lampasas, right? You go to Grace in Lampasas. I know Derek Groves. John is his son. Hi, John. Derek, referred you, said like, hey, I think you guys should talk. You should do a Jesus story. And yeah, I mean, you've got some, I think some stuff that the church, God wants the church to hear. You want to, you say like, look, I'm Jesus. I'm with you. I want you guys to know about this stuff. I'm going to go forward with you, And also I was making the joke that like, you're like the dude where I like the obvious like action hero looking guy that like, I could just be like your second in command guy, that's like, I know him. He saved the whole village. I was with him too, guys. I was too. That's what So yeah, but be in the military, right? You have ex-military.
Correct.
You're a contractor. Any just like basic background about yourself. Anything you want to kind of throw out there to people to let them get to know you a little bit, or? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, first of all, I want to praise God for the opportunity to even be here right now. And I want to say thank you, Jason and Derek out there for being obedient in your calling and your purpose. I think a lot of times that goes unsaid, as it's, what we think are little things end up being big things for the kingdom of God. So I just want to thank you both for being obedient when that's put on your heart to move forward and continue in your calling. Yes, I am retired military. That's, a past identity that I had. I did, 20 plus years in the United States Army, retired out of Fort Hood.
And thank you, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Learned a lot about what to do and what not to do. Provide a lot of opportunities and training, which I find out have become beneficial and fruitful for, what I hope to do in the future. But yeah, married my high school sweetheart. Been married since 2001. We've been together since 1997 when I was a high school senior and she was a junior, before we were even adults, which has a whole lot of life and learning lessons included in that whole process, which I'm sure, we'll delve into as we go along here. Father of 6, 1 in heaven and 5 here now. I got 2 in elementary school. Now it'll be 2 in high school and 1 in college. So 4 boys, 1 girl.
Also stuff we want to delve into too, So yeah, all that we kind of got a little, we're going to walk through your story together, And so yeah, he's got, and this is going to be some good wild stuff, guys, but stuff that I believe. I think he's got a real, it's good. So man, let's just kind of jump into it. But what was your life like as a kid? Like, you want to kind of give us a background on that, or?
Yeah, we can. It's my intent here to be like vulnerable, open, and honest, even with the darkest parts of my life. The ones that the world trains us to try to hide and put up a facade of everything being well, which I did, as worldly in the military. So real quick synopsis, did not grow up in church or with church or really understanding God at all, just based on the family that I was born into. Come to find out later, I've suffered all the things, abandoned by my biological father before I was born. So I never had the benefit of having the love of an earthly father, that was that was my biological father. And I spent a whole lot of time trying to gain approval from somebody that I was never going to gain approval from. Some things that I also suffered, through as a young child, was molested by my grandparents and my uncle from the age of 3 to 13.
Wow.
I had blocked that out. I had no memory recollection of it until I was about 30 years old and came back from a combat deployment. And, that sent me on a downward spiral real quick, trying to reconcile that as an adult, along with a lot of combat trauma, which then opens you up to, what you find out is molestation from other kids, growing up, other boys that I grew up with. So I suffered, through that and with that, and definitely, tried to fracture my identity a little bit as a young kid. And then I was lost. I mean, I had a kind of volatile, toxic home. Come to find out, my mother was bipolar that we didn't know about at the time.
Okay.
She just had that diagnosis, here recently, which adds a whole nother level of complexity to trying to understand and learn emotions and really understand what love is in terms of giving and receiving.
Right, because you're supposed to learn that from your mother. Like, I mean, maybe primarily the nurturing, being taken care of. And I was going to throw in there that there's maybe like not a theory out there, but that Satan's the one that introduces the trauma, but God, a fracturing of a mind is kind of like built into us, that if you have trauma, there's a theory that he actually said that we split our own selves up so that we can actually deal with, maybe he can deal with, I'd say Jesus can deal with individual wrongs, and heal us part at a time. What do you think about that? I don't know.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, I think, one thing that will be apparent, throughout this whole episode or whatever follows is that, like, Christ is the Redeemer. I mean, that's the whole idea of the story of the Bible. When you read through it, like, it all speaks of redemption. You start in Genesis and into Revelation is that redemption is the theme, and God is the Redeemer. And I can speak personally throughout my life that absolutely He's redeemed those pieces of my life, every single one of them that I thought was a curse or trauma or something that I was going to have to carry and hide from the entirety of everybody that I was ever going to get close to. Like, He has redeemed.
That's right. He became the curse. And so okay, so you had, there was multiple kinds of abuse, I'm guessing, or at least definitely there was the sexual kind. And your dad, what happened with your dad? Is he just gone? You didn't know him?
Yeah. So here's the interesting twist, right? So he abandoned me before I was born. So I never had the luxury of a father. Tried to maintain contact, as I got older. And I think I only met him like twice. And then once I finally started, walking with the Lord, because again, I wasn't in church, didn't know God. At that point in time, to be honest with you, I didn't care to know God. I was searching for other things, other answers. But when I finally got to the point where I did want to reconcile that, I find out that he had passed away in 2018. So there's no chance here on earth to reconcile with my earthly father.
So you've never actually met him in person?
Twice I did.
Okay, mm-hmm. Twice. Yeah. What was that like? I'm just
awkward.
Yeah.
Really awkward. I mean, you could see that, I was kind of an inconvenience. It was, something that he was trying to do, but it just wasn't natural. There was no bond there, nothing that was going to, yield any fruit at all.
Right. And, and I got to ask, if, our earthly father is ideally supposed to represent, be God, not be God to us, but represent, show us how God is, maybe be that father, be the one that helps with identity. And so how did you end up rectifying that? Because obviously you came to Christ, but how did that all rectify for you? God, your earthly father wasn't there, and so you got this, which I would think is an understandable bad understanding of God. Maybe you might think early on, God doesn't care. He's not here. My earthly father's here, so God does not care. Maybe that's why you didn't want to know him, but later you did. So I'm just curious, I don't know the story behind that, or how would you define all that?
Yeah, I think absolutely true that I didn't want to know. I mean, that was probably one of the inhibitors that, the evil one had placed in my life at an early age to kind of delay my coming to the truth. But I will say, being led by the Holy Spirit later on in life, as you go back through, in Revelation with the Holy Spirit, he did make it clear he's the master of painting beauty from ashes, right? We hear that all the time, and we try to understand, well, what does that really look like in our lives? Well, I can speak one instance right there was the realization that the reason I didn't have that connection with my earthly father was when I finally did come to the Lord and I found my true father who will never forsake me, who will always love me, whose mercy endures forever.
Yeah.
I would cling so hard that there was no letting go, which became absolutely crucial, as we kind of continue on with the story a little bit later. Like, he needed to cement that identity in him so that I wouldn't stray when the real nasty came later on in life.
Wow, okay. So it's like being away from him like that, missing him, maybe it like magnetized you even harder when you did. Like now that I got him, like, I'm not going to let you go because I know what it's like without you. That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, there was a yearning. I mean, because we have a deep down yearning, to be loved by our Father, whether we like him or not. Like, we're always going to have that, just based in this human body and with the emotions that we have. It's something that we're born with, we're created with. So I did have that yearning, and whether I wanted to realize it or not, I was always trying to get affirmation and love from an individual that I never would. So that yearning became apparent when I finally found my true father, my heavenly father, and come to the realization that he doesn't leave. He'll always be there, and he has always been there.
That's right. It reminds me of that, one of my favorite scriptures, all things were made by Jesus Christ and for him. That's not the exact words, but it's what it's saying. And so that, we're made, if we don't have him, we're going to be missing him, whether we want Jesus or not. So, yeah. I was going to say, like, and we can go stay in your childhood years more, or we could talk about, like, how did that set you up for your teenage years? I mean, what do you think? You want to go in more?
Yeah, I think, so I mean, it really lends itself, to understand, why I went down the path that I did, right? So we can tabulate all the trauma. We can tabulate the not having a earthly father in my life, kind of a volatile, unstable home, which led me, open to a bunch of dark things, a bunch of, flat out demonic things. I mean, I think, the one thing we talked about earlier was, why did I try to commit suicide and hang myself when I was 13? Yeah. Didn't understand it at the time, but as I go back and understand that I was being molested from 3 to 13, and we talk about a fracturing of the identity and nowhere to go with that, of course, I would be coerced into trying to end my life, which I did try. Like I said, when I was 13, hung myself, from a tree by a rope, with a friend there who was in shock, didn't do anything, and lo and behold, my mom came home early and took me down from the rope, and we never talked about it again for decades.
Wow. And okay, what were I want to go into your mom. We were talking about that, but what were there events that, like, led up to that, to trying to, you tried to hang yourself, and, like, specific events, or is it more just like a general feeling of, like, I just want to, I feel like, or I don't know, feel like doing this, or I don't know, what did you say? Was there anything that, was it like?
No, and there wasn't. That was something that I wrestled with for the longest time. And that was, the only time that I, flat out tried to do that, but I didn't understand why. Like, even as an adult, as you try to go back and reconcile your past and events like that are significant, like, I couldn't understand why. There was nothing that led up to it. There was no events that I could pull out of my memory that made it, applicable as a solution at that time, until, later on, whenever I realized that I was being molested, that then it kind of made sense that that's why I would try to do that.
So you didn't even know, maybe the side of you that tried to commit suicide didn't actually know that you were being molested. Would you say that?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. So when you were going through setting up, trying to get rid of yourself, basically, that was a different guy, basically. Yeah. Okay. Wow. And that's that's something else. That's something else. Well, and you know what, actually. So, okay, so you tried to hang yourself, and your mom came in and found you. Is that what happened, or?
Correct. Yeah. Well, I mean, outside, she came home early, which was, completely abnormal for her to have gotten off work that early, to then come and basically take me down from the rope, which at that point in time, I'm like, wow, I'm in big trouble. Like, I'm going to hear about this, but nothing was ever said about it, and never brought up again, until a few years ago, once we finally decided to reconcile, because again, I spent my entire youth lost, either numbing myself, through all sorts of addictions, or, trying to get attention through all sorts of negative activities. And at the same time, as I mentioned, I was in denial of God. I didn't really want to know God, because, now that we peel the onion back, we realize it's like, okay, if my earthly father left, like, is God really good? So I was looking for answers in all the other things. So I was completely into all the pagan type things that you would yield your imagination to, the Ouija boards, the seances, the aliens, evolution, Anunnaki, like all the anti-biblical things is what I consumed and would try to understand as a realization as to why are we here? How is all this happening, to try to get some answers that, kind of fit my engineer type mindset and my linear thinking. Is like, I wanted something tacit, something tangible, something that made logical sense to me, and denying the truth.
And that makes sense, because just because God didn't make sense to you in that point, right? You're like, it was kind of like, God's not with me, so I just have to find another answer, basically. Is that kind of where you looked at it?
Yeah, I was looking for any answer. And, not growing up in a church-going family and not being exposed to that. I mean, if you look back at it, was that the scheme of the evil one? Highly likely was to try to keep me away from the truth. But I went down all sorts of dark roads of trying to understand, and that opened, all the doors to every bad thing that you can imagine. Like, we talked about all the addictions, all of the bad things that I would experience as a young kid, living a life of sin without even really knowing that I was being sinful, that, that I was grieving, the creator of me. I mean, which led to, one of the lowest points was, imagine being a 16-year-old kid as a junior in high school, addicted to cocaine and, breaking into houses and then getting taken out in handcuffs your junior year of high school. I mean, that's where I was at. Like, I didn't care.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And oh man, I was going to say, well, okay. So, and for all of us, I say us that struggle with addiction, because honestly, everybody does. It's that I think that, yes, we're responsible for, like you're saying, we're walking away from God, we're grieving him, right? We all know that. Yet I do think these are traumas that a third party, Satan, set up to bring trauma, to have us so lost that we couldn't comprehend going to God, going to Jesus, because it just doesn't seem like, it's like another world, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think we're looking for comfort. Either we're looking for comfort, or depending on how far you want to go with it. And if you look at all of the bad memories I had as a kid, like, I wanted to numb and forget.
Yeah.
I mean, I did not want to remember the things that either I did or that were done to me, as a child. So what do? We numb and try to just disassociate.
Yes, disassociate. So you did remember some, not all, but and numbing yourself. Yeah, we want is escapism, I guess, right? We're not built to be in that situation, I think, even though we're responsible for part of it. I mean, we're the really ones responsible. We're the ones that chose it, but also we're just not built to be there. And so, okay, so you were trying to forget some things you did. You did, like, just bad memories.
No, bad memories, or just being discontent with life in general. I mean, a lot of it is just being unhappy with what I feel is the current situation that I'm forced in right now, much less add on significant traumatic memories that you're also trying to forget, which impact your current time. I mean, because it really, one of the sayings, I've always found is that it's our unhealed past that worries about tomorrow. Our inability to deal with the things that happened to us as a child or as a youth or in our past, like unless we give those to God and we let the master physician take care of those things, they're going to continue to impact our now and our tomorrow. And he wants to deal with that.
Yes, he does. He wants to walk through it with us, through all the scary stuff, Jesus. And I want to get into that. But at first I want to go back and make sure. Now, you said your mom found you. And then you were saying that later she didn't remember it? Is that right? Or?
Yeah, when we were talking earlier, yeah, that was one of the things. There was a falling out. So, fast forward a little bit. I did make it through my youth, apparently, and then looking at the hand of God on my life before I knew Him, before I wanted to know Him. Like, He was making a way. So for, anybody that does feel like they're lost or does feel like He's not present, know that He is always making a way. And at a point in time when we come out of the world and we ask for it, He will reveal where He has made a way. He's always calling us. Like, it's never on us. He is always pursuing us. He's always coming after us. So I can, making a way for me to get out of that hometown that I was in, to get off to college, because I was blessed with a smart mind. I made good grades. I just made horrible decisions, because I was, looking for attention, or I was looking for comfort, or I was looking to numb. So he ended up, by way of putting a really good mentor in high school, a senior Army instructor. I did junior ROTC as a kid in high school, and that made the way to go to college and to get a scholarship, because I grew up pretty poor. Like, there was no paying for college, there was no college fund, but he made a way through the military and that scholarship program to then go to college and get a degree, and then get into the military, which, gave me structure and training, which was important later on. But there was a falling out, to get back to your question, a falling out with my parents. After I came back from that deployment, I realized, hey, I'd been molested, by my grandparents and my uncle for 10 years as youth. Mom, why didn't you protect me? So I had to look for somebody to blame at that point, because I'm worldly. Like, it's got to be somebody's fault. It's not mine. I know it wasn't mine.
Right.
So there was a falling out with my parents because I wanted to blame them. And for about 8 to 10 years, like, I didn't even talk to my parents.
Okay.
We're from the same hometown. We would go in, and I would not even let them know. But, after the death of our oldest son, which we'll talk about later, like, there was an immediate reconciliation and requirement to make amends with my parents. And, I finally, got up the nerve to ask my mom about that, and ask her about that day. Like, what happened? What do you remember? Why, like, what do you remember from that day? And all she says, Cory, like, I don't even remember that happening.
Wow. And did you ever, which is it wild, her not remembering that she took her son down from trying to hang himself? Did she walk in and you were hanging there?
Oh, I was hanging. I was outside. Like, I can clearly remember which tree it was, where it was at in the house, like where my friend was. And then my mom coming up and her just like taking me down, and then just walking away, and nothing was ever discussed about it again. So when I look back at my life again, where does God make a way? Where does God save us? So there's no doubt that that was God's intervention right there in my life. As I was trying to end it, it wasn't time yet.
I would say, I definitely want to go into that now. Okay, I guess I'm wondering, so did you ever figure out why she didn't remember? I mean, is there, I don't know, maybe some fracturing? Is there, or just she blocked it out, or just couldn't? I
mean, only God knows truly exactly what it was. But my mom's pretty smart and remembers a lot of things from her youth, and we've discussed it numerous times, and she just doesn't remember being there that day.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. We don't know everything, huh? Yeah. Well, okay. So, and after that, and that was at 13. You're 13 years old. That happened. Okay. And you were talking about in 15 later, a couple years later, you were, I mean, at least God saved your life there, looks like to me. But what was going on then? I mean, you were talking about, you delved into some of that. There was some drug use, some, problem with authorities. I guess you're just, maybe we already kind of talked through some of that, but just want to I've got notes and making sure I'm not missing something.
I mean, at that point in time, I was completely in the world and on my own, exploring, whatever I wanted to in the wilderness. I mean, drug use, at that point in time, I was like we talked about earlier, like doing everything from Ouija boards to seances to, studying astral projection to everything about aliens, everything not God. And just, exploring all those avenues and opening myself up more and more to demonic influence. At that point in time, 16, like we talked about, addicted to cocaine as a 16-year-old and doing something I said I would never do. and then somehow making it through that, and getting a deferred prosecution, and graduating high school, and getting into college, and graduating college, and joining the Army.
Yeah, how did that? Okay, so lots of legal trouble, but the Army still accepted you. Do you want to tell us, like, what is the story, or do you not even know how that happened? Was it like a supernatural? Somehow I got in. They let me in, I don't even know how, kind of thing, or
I mean, it's one of those deals where only God makes a way. Because if I look back at my story, which I have numerous times, is like right now I should either be dead or in prison. I mean, that's really what the normal predicted outcome should be. I'll never forget even, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, when I was going through these trials. They were back in our home state. The judge looking at me and telling me, like, I'll see you again. People like you never make it out. Wow. So you want to look at a story of God's grace in action right there, like how he was able to pull me through that, not only that legal trouble, but then get me into college, get me on a scholarship, and then get me in the military, as an officer, not even just enlisted. There I was, a commissioned second lieutenant in charge of people, which is, kind of scary now that I look back at it. Like,
oh, right.
Right after all that, here I am. I'm in charge of people, and then had a very successful military career. Like I finally fell into the structure and the order, and everything that I needed to retrain my brain in terms of, like, okay, how do I submit under authority? How do I function in roles? How do I follow instruction? I mean, I look back at God's made this very clear. Like, everything's been set up to be right where I'm at right now.
That was, God orchestrating the chess pieces to get you, like, now you're going to learn to listen to authority, and that's a step to the next thing, I guess, basically is what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's like the story of the centurion. I mean, when Jesus healed the servant of the centurion, I mean, that was one of the things. Like, once you can understand, like, how authority works, and even if you've been in that level of authority of understanding, how it is to have subordinates under you, it makes it really clear the importance of submitting to a higher authority and what that entails, and the level of trust and responsibility that the leader has.
Right, because it does say, I mean, God puts all leaders in place, even those that aren't following him. If we don't follow him, we're just going to be his pawns in the end, in a loving way. We wouldn't realize, but yeah. So you were seeing that, like that. Yeah, God's leadership is everywhere. It doesn't matter whether people are allegiant to him or not. And so, but sorry, I kind of cut you off there. But
no, I mean, and then a lot of things even happened during my college and military time. While we were in college, getting ready to graduate, I got married in 2001 to my high school sweetheart, and praise God, and only by the grace of God is still my wife to this day, and the mother of our children. But at that point in time, we decided to have an abortion. Because it was going to impact, our future. That's what I thought anyway, being completely selfish. Is like, well, we can't deal with this right now. I've got a career that I need to worry about, so now, we had to deal with the burden of, making that decision as young kids. And then, in the military, the stuff that you're exposed to, like, you really see the true evil in action. I mean, the things that one human can do to another human, which is not godly. It's just torture. It's just hate. It's just pure evil, which is, everything they can do to be absent the presence of God. Like, you get to see that and live through that. Yeah. So lots of experiences, that I went through, through youth in terms of trauma, in the military, more trauma, and really seeing the dark side of humanity, kind of opened my aperture to, like, okay, at some point in time, something needs to be done with that. And if you think worldly, nothing gets done with that. It's just baggage that you carry. I have nobody to help me carry the baggage. But later on, again, not following God, like my almost entire time in the military, not interested at all. And it wasn't until I was, 43 in 2023 on my last deployment, when I really started to want to wonder about God, which at that point in time, was when our oldest son started on his mental descent, which would eventually, end up with him taking his life and what was going to be our forever home.
Okay. And that's, man, there's like 5 different things I want to go back to there. It's like, this is because you got quite a story here. It's like, so we're going to, first of all, how'd you meet your wife and how that happened? And then, gosh, walking through the aftermath of, choosing an abortion, which millions of people do, that's and then have to, walk through with Jesus, and then, the military, and you having kids, and we're kind of like looking at your whole next phase of your life here. But how did you meet your wife? How did that go?
Well, it's pretty clear God placed her in my life. Again, one of those instances where God was working all things for His good, even when I was walking on my own. So she asked me through a friend to meet her at a high school homecoming dance after a football game.
Oh, okay.
And,
all right.
We met at that
good,
dance.
Right?
It did. I enjoyed it. And she, was beautiful and is beautiful. Mm-hmm. And, when I look back at what really drew me to her was I look at her family. Her family was everything my family wasn't. She had her dad. Her family was close. Her brother and her brothers and sister were close with her. So I saw a longing to find some kind of wholeness, some kind of completion, vicariously through them. But then my knucklehead self, another story of stupidity on my end was like that weekend I go down to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and then get arrested for underage possession of alcohol and marijuana. And then I get arrested. My mom has to come pick me up. And then the next football game, I'll never forget meeting her parents for the first time. Was the coach found out about us getting in trouble and didn't let us play that game. So the first time I meet her parents is me. Should have been out there playing, and I'm up here meeting her parents, and they're like, "Well, why aren't you playing?" And we got to tell them, and they were like, "You need to run." And you need to cut sling load with this guy quick.
Not the best first impression.
Horrible. But again, God's grace in action. And now I have such a close relationship with them. They're really great people, and have shown me nothing but love and grace the entire time, even after that, and many other stupid things that I would do. I really got to see and feel love that I hadn't experienced before.
Wow, I always tell people that my wife, Micah, God kept me from meeting her for a while, so I wouldn't do a lot. Well, would have seen the same kind of stuff, but it's like you need a little while longer to cook. You're going to, Jason, you would totally blow it. But yeah, he walked with you through all that, and that's something else. So you meet, you're dating for a while. In high school, is that right? Dating in high school, and get married, I guess, somewhere closer to college age,
in
plus
college.
High school. Okay, in college, yeah. And so, is that when you guys, did y'all get married first? Did you conceive? Did you had to walk through the whole abortion experience?
Timeline, yeah. So looking back at it would have been October of 2001 when. We made the decision and went through with the abortion. We ended up getting married that December.
Oh, okay.
And in terms of walking through it, again, I wasn't with God. She did grow up in a church-going family. And from my perspective, looking back at it, I see the innate ability that we have to compartmentalize, because I just compartmentalized it and just moved on, which I became a master of, knowing a little bit about my past and upbringing. Right now I was a master at taking things and putting them in a deep, dark closet and never thinking about them.
You mean like something happens, and I think guys are really good at this. Something happens, like, well, that happened, and we're just going to put it over here, and it's just, never mind. Basically, that's what you mean by compartmentalize.
Yeah, and we have, and it can be a good thing if you look at, what men are designed for,
right.
For war, for fighting. You go through something that's really horrible. You see a friend dead right next to you, or something, traumatic like that. You're able to compartmentalize that and continue the mission. The thing I tell my kids is, at the end of the mission, you need to debrief.
Right, to go back through it, because in the moment, especially when you can't do something about something in the moment, you can't fix it in the moment, that is the time to compartmentalize, basically like, well, I can't do anything about it now. I got to set it aside right now. And you're saying also you did that in this instance too. But yeah, it is an ability God gives us for sure. Yeah. But sorry if you want to keep going, but
yeah, and then it affected my wife differently. So we look at the difference of men and women. I compartmentalize it. The thing that I will say though is that we take things and we compartmentalize it. We may think that they don't affect us. We may think that it doesn't have anything to do or any bearing on our here and now, but I would tell you that it does. Go back to that saying, our unhealed past is going to worry about tomorrow, and that's where that stuff comes from. Now, my wife, on the other hand, it really fractured a lot of her identity and her emotions, what she was going through, which then led her into the occult.
Wow. Okay.
That was, you talk about how the evil one works. So something like that then led her into the occult.
And would you say leading up to there, was it more of a co-decision? We together deciding we're getting divorced? Was there one that wanted to do it more than the other? Was it, maybe you don't want to go into all that, I don't know, but I'm just curious.
I mean, if anybody, I would take the responsibility for it. I was the one that come up with the idea of like, what's going to impact my career? It's going to impact our ability to progress forward. So like, I was the one that nominated the idea. I mean, did she go along with it? Yes.
But we're supposed to be the leaders, so we're responsible. So I say we, I'm a guy that I've made dumb decisions, many that I'm first in line to get the blame. I recognize that. So I wonder if then in that case, if she's walking into something like the occult that she wouldn't normally do, I mean, could there be some fracturing? Like, I got to escape. Part of it's their own. It's obviously somebody choosing their own path, But part of it could be like, I didn't really get to choose a path in a way too, maybe, But and this part of what led me there. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it again comes back to just looking for healing.
Yeah.
Because if I look at her walk, and it would probably be good to have her on here, kind of, walk through her perspective.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, because she's going to be able to explain it, much more personally than I will. But I think it comes back to like, you're looking for answers. Like ultimately, like, that's what I was doing, right? I'm looking for answers. I'm looking for some kind of understanding. I'm looking for healing, even if I don't know that I'm looking for healing. I'm looking for it in some kind of comfort of like, I kind of have an idea of what's going on around me and who I am and how I'm here. I think the same thing would apply to her. She's looking for belonging to something, and clearly, if she did something that she knew growing up, a Christian, that was not okay, well, then I got to do something away from God, because I know how God feels about that. Maybe I can find comfort and belonging somewhere else.
So, it was more like, I'm so far away from God right now, or I'm not with God, so I got to figure out this problem on my own. Maybe we're all both kind of there, like we just got to take care of it ourselves.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, selfish and prideful, I think, in that instance. But again, it goes back to, she's just looking for connection. And if somebody can take God, right? So if you look at the occult and you look at, the stuff that she was in, I mean, they still say God, right? They still try to explain God. It's not God. It's their demon that they're worshiping, but they can couch it and package it in a way that seems almost believable, that makes you feel like you're still doing good.
Oh, okay. So it's not even necessarily like the Gnostic gods, the evil demiurge. It's just like God is letting this happen because of some made-up reason or something, is what you're saying. That's where they're coming from.
I mean, that, or you just try to reinterpret God to allow you to be able to do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay. So you guys, you're there. You walk through, got married, walked through an abortion, and you're saying you're far away from God. You're in the military still at this point?
Correct.
Okay, and because you served, how long did you serve?
A little over 20 years.
Okay, all right. Okay, served for over 20 years. Okay, and so you were in there, so you just got out. Well, anyway, so you were in the military for a while, and so you guys are serving. Is your wife working? Is she, I mean, what else is going on in life? Is she taking kids to school, maybe homeschool? I don't know what's going on in this time.
Yeah, well, I mean, shortly after the military, so we got married in 2001. I officially joined the military in 2004. And really in 2005, we had our first child. So 2005, 2006, 2009, 2011, 2015, 2017, were all the years where
for all the kids.
We had children.
Okay,
yeah.
Awesome.
So, our first child, Ryan, he was born in 2005. So the early part of the military, I mean, she was really pregnant when we got to our first duty station. And the first several years, she spent her time just taking care of the kids, being a mother, while I'm gone, right? So I'm deployed. I'm either deployed or I'm training. It's the height of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Even with our second son, Michael, like in one deployment, I missed his birth and his first birthday in the same deployment to Baghdad.
Oh, wow. Because you were just gone. You just literally couldn't be there.
Well, we got extended. It was the surge during that time. I was fighting war and completely oblivious to the pressure that I put on her. I mean, she's at home with, at that point in time, 2 children. Like, we're away from our family because they're in North Carolina. Like, they would fly in and help as much as they could. But she's completely on her own, and then at the same time living with the day-to-day, knowing like, is Cory even going to make it back?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting how I think us guys with our wives, we'll just think like, what's your situation? If I were there, I might be okay. That's kind of where we leave it, but that's not, it doesn't work like that. I think women probably care more than we do. And it's more, they're trying to fix everything all together, and, anyway, sorry, but okay. So you guys, okay. So y'all have in that span of time, you had 6 kids that you raised, and you were in the military the whole time, and she was raising them. And that's kind of where we are right now.
We're kind of getting there. So, throughout the time, once the kids got older, she did explore with, working, as much as she could along the way, as kids would start going to school or stuff that she could do at home, with the kids. And it really wasn't up until we finally made the decision that I was going to get out. I was going to retire. We were going to move to our forever home up near Pidco, and that's where we were going to settle down. That's when she finally got to start on, what was her dream, which was, running her own business. She'd always done dog training. So we built a facility out there to do dog training and dog boarding. She started a nonprofit to provide service dogs to civilians, not military, because first responders have lots of access to programs that provide service dogs to help them out. But she wanted to feel the need for civilians, the people that suffer through, sexual trauma, domestic violence, or even have illnesses, that a dog can help alert to. So she was doing all that right as we entered the major inflection point of life, which was right around my retirement time. And that was when everything kind of took a big shift in terms of life. As I was finishing up my military career, I was on, the last deployment, and there I was, commander at the end, deployed to Eastern Europe, based on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and how do we continue to deter that. And it was during that deployment, our son, our oldest son, who was named after me, Cory Ryan Clayton II, he was my hope for a change, right? So this, again, all before I knew God. He was going to be the one that was going to be the change agent, the chain breaker, per se.
Your progeny that would do better than you, and that would...
Exactly. He was going to create a different path for the family. Now, what we haven't talked about yet was, about 2000... When he was about 10 years old, so about 2010, we started noticing signs that like something was a little off physically. But it wasn't really until 2015 that he was diagnosed with what they call Charcot-Marie-Tooth syndrome. So it's a genetic nerve disorder, and it's degenerative, it's terminal.
Wow.
And it affects the ability to walk, the ability to use the hands, causes extreme pain. So he started off with that in 2015. And then at that point in time, what my wife spent a lot of time doing was taking him to physical therapy. I mean, he was going to physical therapy 4 times a week.
Sounds about right. And I was going to ask, like, were there any effects that you can see looking back now from, well, one, choosing maybe a career over a child, but 2, like, your wife being in the occult, was that just sort of just like compartmentalized and didn't really affect anybody? Or did you see, I don't know, I'm just curious, how did you see that? Or could it be connected to that maybe?
I mean, could it possibly be? I mean, how we open up those doors, I mean, nobody knows. But I do know that
it isn't like obvious that, okay, yeah.
No, I mean, I don't think there's an obvious connection.
Right,
could it be?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, is it time, God peels layers away for us to deal with things when we have the capacity to do so. And it's his timing, not ours. So is that something that gets healed in the future? I don't know, but I do know that, I mean, the military, I suffered with a lot of regret and guilt a little bit, kind of dealing with, what I was doing as a profession and the moves. I mean, at that point in time, right before when he should have been getting diagnosed early, we moved 5 times in 6 years. So we were seeing a different doctor every year. So there's no way for a doctor to see a trend, because he did have some weird anomalies. When we look back at it, he had no reflexes. He had a lot of leg pains and growth pains. And, me being the military guy, one of the things that I had to take to God and get healed was like, okay, I'm like, let's go out and force march. We're going to continue walking. Like, you're going to get over this. You're just being weak. I need to make you tough.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was doing that not knowing that he had a nerve disorder, and, the suffering that I was probably putting him through by forcing him to do that, thinking I'm doing the right thing. So I had to go and ask for forgiveness and let that part be healed. And then, Rebecca, dealing with, taking him to physical therapy was a drain on top of me being in the military and still deploying and still training a lot. It's just taxing mentally and emotionally.
A lot of taxing, a lot of what I would think is pretty. Well, that's a lot, but I think just society puts regular trauma on us like nonstop, like, stuff like lack of community, which you guys, of course, experience. You're moving around, lack of community. You don't have a continuous doctor to help you figure out what in the heck's going on with them. And yeah, like I don't know, I'm kind of like putting in a little trail of like, things that led up to. Sorry, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, so this is the trail of the ugly, right? This is the trail of the hurt, the hardship. There's redemption on the back end, so it wasn't all doom and gloom. But continue on a little bit to kind of set everything up. Is we ended up finding them a camp to go to, and that's called Camp Footprint. And it was where people that had Charcot-Marie-Tooth, they call it CMT. They go once a year, and it's up in Pennsylvania. And they're all around individuals with the same disorder, the same terminal illness.
Okay.
And he came alive again. He had hope. He started working out at home, and everything seemed to be on an upward trend.